Okay, so next we're going to colour in our robin, and generally we're doing a very slow step-by-step process to try and make a realistic looking drawing, but you could always um, do the warm-up style to create more cartoony birds, or you can apply the same techniques of just looking for shapes in anything really. Drawing is about patience, one, and just really trying to look at those shapes and putting them down onto paper. Okay, so now to add colour. So I've got a watercolor set here. So I'm going to use watercolors, and I've got a brush, medium-sized brush. But if you have a smaller one, maybe a smaller one would be a good idea. But I'm using one this size. If you don't have paints, you can try and use some colored pencils, maybe. But for now, I'm going to teach how to use watercolor. I've got some clean water here. I've got a tile, but you can use a plate or anything, and a white surface is good so you can see what colours you're doing. I've also got this, which kind of pulls the colour, which is also nice. And it's a soft brush, watercolour brush. Right, so I like to start with the brightest colours first, because we don't want our water to get dirty to do that. So this is this colour here. Now everyone says red-breasted, but I mean that's red. This is yellow, orange. I say it's like a reddy orange, that colour. So I'm going to look for, often you have different types of red. So you've got one red which is more a cooler red and a warmer red. This red's closer to orange, and this red's closer to a purpley red. So we're going to go for our more orangey red. Well, let's start with yellow. We always start with the brighter colours. So I've got a nice clean yellow over here. So I'm going to, I need to clean my brush. It's got a bit of green in from my last painting. So you might want to clean the colour a little bit. So I'm getting some yellow, and I'm going to put it on the tile over here. And then I'm going to go to the red. Get some red to make orange, but it's going to be a very reddy orange, so mostly red. Now, the thing with watercolour, there's many ways to use it. You can do it with quite a dry brush or a very wet brush. So I'm going to load the brush quite full of paint, try and get as much paint, and then I'm twiddling the brush around to get as much paint in as possible. And we are ready to go with the orange area, so which we've already marked out. Now I'm going to start at the top, and can you see the paper? I'm only going to touch very lightly around the areas that we drew. I'm not pressing it down. I'm just floating over the surface of the paper, just using the very tip of my brush. Just trying to draw in the bits that we started with, and then get more paint on the brush. And I'm just gonna very softly, maybe this is a bit too orange. It's okay if you start with lighter colours, because we can always add red, a bit more red. Okay, wait for that to dry, or there's a bit dark bit here. I'm just going to spread that out so it's blended. Now we can put in the sort of browny colour. So to make brown, brown is kind of like a dark orange. I've got a kind of brown there, so I'm going to look for, this is called yellow ochre, this colour, which is called an earth colour, because it is literally from the earth, a yellowy earthy stone. Now try and get as much of this earthy yellow as possible, and we can mix in a little bit of brown. I've got lots of different browns here. I've got a reddy brown and a blacky brown, and so I'm going to go for maybe this brown here and mix it in with the yellow. And then I'm going to get some white. If you have white, I think would be quite good for this. Get lots of. There we go. That's kind of getting there. Bit too. Might add maybe a tiny bit of, what's this? That brown's quite good. Okay. So a nice light brown. And then we can start putting let's start with the tail. So again, just float your brush on the paper. And it's quite kind of grey here, so there's quite a nice colour here. So I'm just going to thin this colour out with a bit more water. So a bit more water on my brush. I mean, I'm quite experienced at painting, so I'm just going to put the wing in. If you do it thinly, we can add more layers later once it's dried. Okay, oh, there's a nice bird outside. Is that a robin? Might be a real robin. Okay, and then let's just put a few strokes onto this bit of the wing here. Okay, so let's add a little bit of brown for going around the top of his head. A little bit there, just kind of doing this bit here. Okay, and then we've got a bit more, it's a bit darker, so you can add another layer for this bit of the wing. And then this is a sort of greyish, so to make grey, I'm just going to start with some white. And I don't actually have any black, but you might have a little bit of black, but you know, you can always mix black. So I can mix black by getting brown and a dark blue, this is ultramarine blue. And I'm mixing it together, and it's not quite black, but it gets kind of close to black. That's quite blue, so I get a bit more brown. Too much brown, so go a bit more blue. Thin it out over here, and then nice kind of grey, and then mix it in with that white. A bit more blue. Then I'm just going to get a little drop of water again. And I'm twiddling my brush around like this, and then I don't want it to be very dark grey, so I can either use water or a bit more white. And then we can put the grey area in. And it's good to have a bit of scrap paper somewhere to clean your brush on. So I might just use the side. That's going to be messy. So here's a bit of paper I'm not using. I can just clean my brush a little bit. And we can spread the grey around like this. Bit more grey on my brush, and we can grey around here, and then there's a bit of a grey on. Oh, we don't want to go too dark. I'm going a bit dark there, so can add a bit of shading into this bit as well. Like that. And we can add a little bit of grey on the wing, maybe. Try and fade it out. And then we can get that brown which we mixed earlier. But I'm putting a bit more yellow in. And then clean your brush. So it's got not much paint on at all. And I'm just trying to do that. Can you see there's some yellowy in the white breast area? I'm just going to put that in, but very lightly. Like this. Okay, a bit more colour up here. Now, what colour is the leg? It's a kind of grey, crimson-y. So we've got grey mixed already. Let's just add a bit of crimson in, a tiny bit of this red, which is less orangey red, but darker red. And then maybe a little bit of orange from earlier. So the mixture of all the colours so far, really, the legs. A bit more crimson, I think. Crimson's over here. Okay. Right, clean my brush a little bit on the paper and then put the legs in, just using the tip of my brush. Could probably be a bit more colourful than that. There's actually, there we go. And you can use just leave the white of the paper, but I think I want to just add a bit more paint in there, so I'm just going to get some white that I've got down here, just to separate it from the paper a little bit, and put this. Ooh, looks a bit grey actually. That'll do though. No, that's not very nice, is it? We need it whiter than that. So maybe I will leave it white actually. So if you've got, do you know what, you can pick paint up. If you dry your brush off, you can sort of squeeze the water out of your brush so it's dry again. I'm having to do it with one hand, and you can lift the paint a little bit to make it go back to paper. Like that. I'm just going to paint in that little bit there. Okay. You can add a branch if you like. He's looking a little bit messy, so I can just neaten him up a bit by making this whole bit a bit browner. It's looking a bit light, so I'm going to go back to that brown. The first layer's dried a little bit, so I'm just going to make it a bit darker. Blend it a bit. Little robin. So yours might look different, but I've still got some light bits here, and I'm just going to fill that in a little bit, and then make the beak darker, and maybe make the eye darker, and we can do some finishing outlines. Okay, it looks a bit, I'm just going to add a tiny bit more grey. A bit more. Clean my brush a little bit here. Just looking for the gaps that I've missed. Blend this a little bit. Okay. Still looks a bit light. Grey. Okay, let's make the beak a bit darker. This is the black. I've got a bit of ink there. Just the underside. This is quite dark down here, just looking where the dark areas are. The edge of the wing we can go around with the tip of our brush, like this. Add a tiny bit of shadow under the wing, so just again using the a little bit more to the beak. The eye is very dark, so I'm going to get some. If you've got black, you can probably use black, but I quite like not using black because there's always warmer areas and cooler areas to blacks. So I'm going to add a bit more blue in, and then again clean my brush. It's kind of a black colour like this. And let's make this, make the eye a bit darker. Bit smudged there. try and fix that bit. I've kind of gone over a little bit, so I'm just gonna. His eye's a bit big now, but anyway, look, I'm going to try and lift that a bit because it's gone a bit dark. I've got some kitchen towel here. While it's still wet, you can lift it by pressing, but I might have left it a bit late. Oh, I've left it too late. Okay, not to worry, we'll keep his eye like that. Anyway, there is our Robin. You can go around with some pencil if you want to outline him a bit. I think he needs a branch to go on, so let's just get some nice brown. Here's my little scrap paper to test on. A bit of red in there. Ooh. And then I make that a bit thicker. Nice. That's a real bird. That's not a recording outside. Gonna add some clean your brush. I'm just gonna add some leaves. I'm just doing fir tree leaves, but you can add whatever leaves you like, or be creative with it. But I'm just gonna add what I see in there. Bit too light. So I'm going to add the green to a bit of dark. Ta-da! Now we can call it a day there. I mean, if I was going to do this, I would add maybe one more layer, and then I'd use my squirrel brush to put tiny shading in all the tiny little lines. But maybe I think that's in a few more years' time, or if you want more advanced lessons, then let me know. But for now, I think that's okay. Okay, cool. I mean, if you really wanted, you could add. He's a bit messy up here, so I could try and add a few of these lines and slowly try and blend things more. I can't believe it. I didn't press play. I've just been doing lots of work on it and I forgot it didn't work. But basically, that last stage, what I would usually do if I was painting, I'd then add lots of details with a tiny brush, like sort of drawing lines, lots of tiny lines, but you won't have such a small brush. So what I did was get the pencil back and just try and correct things with outlines. And I've been doing tiny little feather shading, so one mark between the previous two, one between two, one between two, one between two, and building it very slowly and trying to, where it was messy, where it was light, I add a dot or a line, and you just look where the feather lines are here and the shading. Anyway, this is a bit more of an advanced level. I'm trying to find a bit which I can demonstrate. So I've just made these lines darker again, and I'm just putting little dots up in the leaf, not the leaf, what am I saying, the wing, to add a little bit of texture, but always aiming for the gaps, and little tufts of hair, so you just be very lightly like this. We can add little tiny lines here as well, and you can see where there's gaps in the painting, so you can aim for those gaps. Can you see that gap? I can just go in the gap and it makes it look a little bit neater. Okay, anyway, so there you go. That's just with a bit of shading and trying to blend things a little bit. But I've got a very sharp pencil, so it might be too difficult to do. But if I was painting, I'd probably spend about a week on it. So the main thing is just patience with the shading and just going very slowly and looking for tiny bits of tonal difference. But anyway, for now, I think we're done. So there he is. There's the robin. I hope you enjoyed it, and let's do some more birds another time. Okay, bye.